We're here in the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. Not that anyone can tell, it's like pretty indistinct. But yeah, tell us the story, Aashay.
Yeah, well, we're here in the Burj Khalifa, surrounded by beautiful Emaar properties in the background. I don't know if you actually know the story of the gentleman who started Emaar.
I have no idea. Tell me.
He used to work in the central bank, and then he started to develop a taste for real estate and got close to one of the sheikhs in Dubai. And so over time, he slowly positioned himself to basically get into the good books of the sheikh. And then when he started getting into real estate, he got all the deals for the big properties that were being built around the Burj.
So it's a classic case of networking.
Classic case of positioning yourself.
Which is
what Dubai is all about.
Dubai is about positioning.
It's about positioning.
I'm very disappointed with our positioning at the moment, but that's a story for another day. So Aashay and I work together. Aashay is on our growth marketing team. Aashay, what do you do at the agency?
Yeah, so I'm a director of growth. What I do is I basically help scale our clients that come on acquisition. So Meta ads, Google ads, TikTok ads, largely through rapid creative testing, understanding P&Ls, working with media buyers to optimize channel performance. And yeah, I mean, I have a deep specialty in Meta ads, I think, specifically when it comes to creating content, iterating on content, and then scaling ad budgets.
Yeah, and I think some of the performance in Q4 of the accounts you managed was insane. I think the most interesting case was Sculpd and just what they were able to achieve. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that business?
Yeah, so Sculpd is a at-home pottery kit brand. So they make air dry clay kits for people, and their positioning is really as like an alternative to a date night or an alternative to a movie night, kind of basically leading into those altruistic values of like creating memorable experiences, making someone feel appreciated, right? And its typical use cases, you see the product perform really well during gifting seasons, like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, and then going into Q4, Black Friday, and Christmas. And so yeah, we ended up helping grow their business by almost 100% in Q4, largely dominated through their US market, where just the messaging that we honed in on with the creative really resonated with audiences. So a couple of things we did there. The first was specifically with content. So I think they had a really good strategy when it comes to creating content, when it comes to understanding their customer, but they weren't very well versed in distributing that content. So they kind of understood what kind of creative they needed to make, but I think they needed a partner that could help really scale that, both in terms of the velocity of creative that they're doing, and then also how they're iterating on winning angles, winning concepts. So a couple of things we brought to them. I think UGC was probably the biggest element there. UGC was not really a part of their strategy before.
What were they doing before from a content perspective?
Yeah, largely they were partnering with like professional potters, people into arts and crafts, and just people who had a general interest in their category. And they were kind of filming overhead shots of people making cool pottery pieces. And then they were largely leveraging organic social to grow, actually. I mean, I think their Instagram has a couple million followers, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I mean, the product is like, it's so demonstrable. Like the ads are really fun. I think it's a fun product. It's something that you can really get behind. We were talking about this earlier, but it's like products that you can gift or things that I think bring you joy or will bring other people joy. I think it's such a powerful category because everyone is gifting. It's something that, is very cyclical. You can deliver it to a bunch of different people. But I think that's like really powerful. But if you can show it through creative, that is everything.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the interesting thing about their business.
500K.
Yeah, there you go. I think the interesting thing about their business is and I know we talk about this a lot, they grew through organic first before really scaling up paid, right? So they built such a robust organic program to the point where, you know, they could spend no money on ads and still bring in a decent amount of revenue each month. And basically Meta became this amplification device for what was already a very strong business model, a very strong content flywheel.
I think today that's the playbook. Like, you need to have a content machine for organic. I think to just like understand angles and what works, and like you get traction that way. Just because you can have organic amplification and you can reach net new colder audiences that don't know the product. So if I'm starting a business and I get really good at creating short form content, in their case it's like short form video with potters, and people start to like it, and like there's signal there. You're like, okay, I have something that people want. If you're driving sales through organic, then Meta just becomes all upside. It's all incremental.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that's really important for brands to have a solid organic program first. And then to your point, like Meta becomes an amplification engine.
One of the things we don't talk about enough is what is the goal of Meta ads, right? I think a lot of people expect that the job of Meta ads is to bring you sales. But that's not really the job of Meta. Like they're not in the business of acquiring customers. They're not in the business of bringing sales. They are in the business of distributing content, like all social channels. And I think where Meta works the best is when you've already, we've seen this with numerous examples, when you've already validated a winning strategy from the content side, and then you kind of just leverage
scale.
You leverage the AI, you leverage machine learning, and you leverage the massive audience on the platform.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's like you have a solid business. You're generating content, and you kind of want to unlock that next stage of growth. And Meta is an opportunity to do that. It's a channel for that. I think where a lot of businesses get into difficult circumstances is when they view it as like it's like a sales channel, and they're over optimizing, and they're kind of like they get too in the weeds. They like forget the purpose of the channel. So okay, let's going back to Sculpd though. It's basically they had a strong organic program, and how were they thinking about Meta ads when they came to us? I'm actually not even really aware of this because I wasn't really involved in those discussions.
Yeah, I think when I first took a look at what they were doing on the Meta side, I was just blown away by the efficiency. I think it was one of the most efficient Meta advertising programs that I had seen, and efficient in terms of not just what they're doing from like an MER and CAC perspective, but being able to maintain that efficiency at significantly higher levels of spend, right? So they were able to maintain the same efficiency spending a couple $1,000s a day when they spent $30,000 or $40,000 a day during certain peak gifting seasons and sales periods. So right away, I think what it told me was they probably weren't spending enough. And this is something we talked a lot about with them, which was how can you be a little more aggressive with projections. I think they redid their projections 3 or 4 times during Q4 because of the scale that they were seeing starting in October, November, and December. I think fundamentally there's a few really good things about that business. One, their website is super optimized. So if you go through their website, you look at their funnel, they've really dialed in PDPs. Like they've kind of nailed that format of talking about pain points and then demonstrating how Sculpd is like the perfect solution through UGC content and through like video content. And then
give us an example of that.
Yeah, so like an example is like they would create specific SKUs that were tailored towards the main pain points that they were addressing. So like they saw that the date very early on in their business, they saw that the date night use case was really like a winner for them in terms of creative that kind of leaned into this is an alternative to date night sort of messaging. So they actually bundled together a few of their hero SKUs into like a double date night bundle product, right? And then all of the messaging on the product page and all of the kind of UGC content, customer reviews, testimonials were all geared towards that use case. And then they understood that because of the success that they were having already promoting that messaging, creating a SKU that aligned with those pain points would probably work well on Meta. And that's like one of many examples of the kind of content that they were doing.
How do you think about when you have multiple use cases and angles for a particular product, like whether it's personas or value propositions that you kind of want to highlight? In Sculpt's case, I think there are so many. How do you think about like the prioritization of developing then running creatives for those use cases?
I think this goes back to like a broader thought that I have on how to run ads on Meta successfully. I think if you look at a lot of businesses, they're focused on trying to create a ton of new original content every day. And with the rise of like TikTok, you're seeing more and more of this. Like people want to create new original content every single day. They kind of want to flood the internet and flood people's feed with just brand new original content. And I think when you take a step back and look at all of that from like a 30-day, 60-day, or 1-year perspective, you realize that there isn't much of a theme that kind of comes across with all that content. It's a lot of different things that are addressing a lot of different use cases, products, pain points. What I saw with Sculpd was an opportunity to double down on the 2 or 3 use cases that were really working for them. Anything that had to do with like gifting, whether it's times like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, or it's just birthdays, things like that.
Let's just to give perspective here.
Yeah.
When you started, how much was Sculpd spending in advertising spend on a monthly basis?
They were spending 30 to 40K a month.
Wow. Okay. And then when was that? That was like July.
Yeah, July.
Okay. And then December, they spent about $1 million.
Yep. $1 million.
That's great scale. The marketer being able to open up that spend and communicate with the CFO or the CEO who's kind of looking at the P&L and trying to project out advertising spend and expenses. I think when you're dealing with a consumer business that's scaling on Meta, you need to have a different way of approaching scale because it's more of like a CPA efficiency target. And if you're hitting it, you can kind of endlessly scale if your inventory is there. So I wanted you to walk us through how you kind of worked with the client on that, how you worked with those guys on that. Did they see the business in that way?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because when you look at a seasonal business and you look at their like Shopify charts and you kind of understand the patterns in sales that occur throughout the year, it became very obvious to me that we would just have to get 2 or 3 moments right to end up having like a successful year. Specifically in Q4, once you get into Black Friday and then kind of those 12 to 15 days after Black Friday to shipping cutoff dates for most brands, which is mid-December. So the way I kind of looked at it is we analyzed their creative program the year before, which I think they would say was like probably lacking in variety of content. They did a really good job of finding the 2 or 3 use cases that resonated with customers, but they kind of just didn't have a very good way to create many iterations of what was working and then also hit it from many different angles, as in UGC content, short form video, statics, whatever it is. So I kind of took a look at the content and I projected out what we would be able to provide them, the lift that we would be able to provide from a content perspective. And based on that, I started to understand how much we could scale the business. So I understood that if they were able to scale budgets to 10 to 20K a day with only like 5 pieces of content that were performing on Meta, if we could give them 15 or 20 pieces of high quality content in a week, we could probably double or triple their budgets with the same efficiency. So it was really just about playing that numbers game when it came to content.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you have the same? I have a very similar approach with thinking about the funnels for businesses in general, even those that have like hundreds or thousands of SKUs. It's like, let's focus on the core products and the core angles or creatives that are going to get people into the program. And then I think the power with high volume from a SKU perspective storefronts is the cross-sell, upsell potential from there. Like if you have products that are complementary or kind of within the same ecosystem. So I resonate with what you were saying on like, look at, isolate a couple of things to focus on and press on. You kind of need to simplify the creative program or the new customer acquisition program.
I think in general, the approach that we took with them and that we take with a lot of brands that are successful is we validate winning pieces of content and then we scale it through as many different avenues as possible. I think we're gonna touch on tools like Fermat that kind of help amplify that process, but that's really where we brought a whole different level of scale to that business. They had already done a really solid job of building up the content flywheel through organic, building up a good ads program, and we kind of just took it to the next level by distributing it very effectively across multiple avenues, both on the ad targeting side and then mainly on the content side.
Yeah, I think when you're able to unify all of those pieces, it's like, okay, from a business strategy perspective, you isolate core SKUs, creatively you figure out the angles, the creative angles that are going to work for those SKUs, and then you align creative with landing page, with eventually the customer retention program. You have this like great alignment that can be very simple and elegant with direct to consumer. I think this is exciting for marketers. I was talking about this at the conference the other day, is like the tooling that's coming out is just allowing us to be so much more effective and quick at our jobs in ways that you just couldn't beforehand. Like I think people actually forget this. When you're building a marketing infrastructure that's meant to produce creative at scale and to be successful on organic, on paid, in B2B, you need to be producing a lot of content. At different ad formats, video, statics, it needs to be on brand, landing pages. That just requires a lot of resources. Requires designers, video editors, creative strategist or creative director, and then your media team. Now we have these tools that are just allowing people to operate so much quicker. So in the case with Fermat, it's like, you know this better than I do, like just how quickly you can spin up LPs and like what that does to your efficiency. Maybe you can speak a little bit more on that.
The way I look at Fermat is, obviously for anyone that doesn't know, Fermat is a landing page tool that basically gives you fully shoppable storefronts at the point of experience. So you have the opportunity to kind of see the messaging of the ad follow you all the way through the point of purchase, which has really been a game changer in the DTC space, and I think is probably the future of content and landing page experiences. In particular, I think what Fermat does is they provide a really good vehicle for just distributing content effectively. So the way that we've primarily leveraged Fermat is we've been able to take winning pieces of content and test them to the different sort of landing pages and PDP formats that are available through the platform. So we've got a winning piece of content. It's running to the brand's PDP. With Fermat, we can create a shoppable storefront that someone can purchase directly on the ad. We can create a long form listicle page within a day, kind of leveraging their AI ghostwriter on top of their very simple no-code storefronts. We can package up some of the best-selling products and bundles into a quick Fermat shop and run creatives there. So if you think about creative in that it's capped with the amount of scale that you can achieve before you lose efficiency, I think what Fermat allows you to do is achieve infinite scale by taking winning pieces of content and distributing it across all their different customizable templates for shopping experiences.
Yeah, and I think this is what's cool about the AI tooling. It's like you have a variety of different inputs, whether it's creative or SKU-based things, and just able to unify it in a very automated, fast way, which previously just took a lot of time and effort and brain power to put that stuff together. In terms of creative and landing pages, it just seems like we're going to a place where you're going to have infinite customization potential, like you were mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the bulb head use case for Vermont, right? So bulb head, one of our clients that's really been around for a long time in the kind of home products, gadgets space, pioneered the infomercial, rode their success on TV ads for over 20 years. They kind of got into the Facebook game late in 2021, 2022. I think they approached it in a really smart way. They, instead of trying to understand, instead of trying to reinvent the brand to optimize for these social platforms, they understood that they had built up such a good customer base, and they had also validated winning pieces of content over the many years that they had run TV phones.
That's their business right there. We can manufacture very quickly at scale, and not just like at scale for an individual product, but like replicate that across different ideas. And then we can also validate winning long form commercial content.
Yeah. So if you look at that long form commercial content that works very well, they tend to have a lot of success with like 2-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute commercials, right? And they understood that the core messaging and the style of content resonates with their audiences on any platform. It will.
Yeah, if you hook someone, they're gonna watch the entire video. Actually, let's talk about this. Like, how do you think about long form commercial content for social platforms, like traditionally short form video platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an interesting saying, which is when everybody's doing something, what you want to do to be successful is to do the opposite. Everyone's out here trying to find the perfect type of short form content that's optimized for these platforms. And these guys come onto Facebook and they say, let's do the opposite. Let's bring our 15-minute, 30-minute spots to Meta ads.
They're like, we know this works.
Yeah.
Let's get it. And I think what they figured out is like, if you're interested in something and the pacing is right, you're going to watch it. So they've mastered that format. And then, I mean, it's just little tweaks to get it to work on IG. So for them, it's like introduce a UGC hook on top of a long form commercial video.
Yeah, their content strategy in general is to take winning pieces of content and infinitely iterate on it. So if you've got a 2-minute commercial that's working, find a dozen clips within that 2-minute spot that could act as the hook of another variation. So you could take one base unit of creative and have 10 to 12 unique ads that are running on Meta. You can then amplify that further by taking UGC content and putting those hooks in front of the commercial. You can take statics that are working and performing well on the platform and kind of put those as the intro card to the commercial. And then with Vermont, you can take those creatives and run them to 5-6 different landing page experiences. So already you're looking at one piece of content being able to potentially run as 100 different ads on the platform. Each one of them with the opportunity to scale, because the core piece of content has already been validated as winner.
I mean, for that subset of bulb head products that we're running, how did growth look like for that business?
Yeah, I think they have a very rigorous product testing strategy, mainly through TV ads. So they'll introduce new products into the business every quarter, and they'll try and find winning pieces of content and validate it through their TV ad strategy. And so what we found was, I think a couple of the products that we worked with them early on showed some potential to scale, but weren't really like hero products or weren't really winners, so to say. But then they introduced a couple of products. One's a carpet cleaning spot and stain remover. Another is a Bullshot. Another is a
one of my favorite products.
Yeah, and the creative for that is just,
it's brilliant,
very dialed in.
It's brilliant.
And so once they introduced that to Meta ads, it resonated with the same audiences that they saw on the TV side. So
what type of creatives are we running on AppLovin for that business?
It's really the same strategy that we take across all platforms. It's taking the core commercial piece of content that's working and then just iterating it to the best practices of AppLovin. So with AppLovin kind of showing on gaming networks and kind of just hitting a different niche of audience. I think in particular, their content really resonates with older women. They've just adapted that creative with certain intro cards and end cards that match the best practices and the interests of that niche that are on the ad network.
The thing that I worry about is like platform saturation, but when we talk to the AppLovin, they're like, we have a ton of advertising inventory, despite having 140 million daily active users.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing about AppLovin is a lot of people are saying it's the new Meta. I think they've sort of really effectively just rode the wave of like the interest in gaming and the boom that category has witnessed over the past couple of years. I think there's some elements to their ad targeting algorithm which also align very closely with Meta in that, unlike a lot of platforms, they see the most success when you broaden audiences and when you kind of let the creative do the targeting, which is really what made Meta the Goliath that it is in the digital advertising world.
Aashay, I think you embody the spirit of what the director of growth at Darkroom is really meant to be. Honestly, at the agency, but also just in general. Talk a little bit more about that role and why it's not the best fit for everyone, or actually not the best fit for most people.
The interesting thing about servicing client accounts and running growth marketing for these businesses at Darkroom is there's very little oversight that happens from senior leadership at the company, which I think helps some people and isn't as valuable for others. So I think in my case, what I found really interesting was the ability to have like full ownership over these client engagements and kind of full autonomy to try whatever I wanted to without worrying about like any implications in terms of what superiors would think, in terms of what the client would think. I think that just gives you the opportunity to take risks and test rapidly and
take chances. I think it's so important for marketers to be able to actually take chances and kind of put their name on the line. You need to be creative. You need to kind of go outside the box in order to see what works for a business. I think where people get trapped is when they just start running things for the sake of running things and they're not thinking critically or strategically. The director of growth role at Darkroom and the way that it's envisioned is you're acting like an owner, not only of the P&L of the businesses that you work with and how you're growing contribution profit and EBITDA, but you're also acting like an owner of their marketing and creative programs. So what should we run? Where should we be investing? And to tie that back to the tooling that we have today, it's like investing in media has very much been an art where you're kind of making guesses based on gut feel of like, hey, I want to increase spend by X percentage in this channel, or I want to invest here, or I want to test these concepts. That I think is incredibly valuable for a marketer to have. But I think now we're starting to see a lot of the tooling develop where you can make more accurate bets based on data. To me, that's the beauty of performance marketing. That's how it should be done in its essence. It's data-informed, creative, and financial marketing. You have creative, you have finance, and you have data kind of enriching everything. That's hard for everyone to get right. You have some people that just want to stay in the creative lane. You have some people that just want to stay in the data lane and be more of like an analyst reporting on metrics. The ability to act and have the elbow grease and be able to put in the hand-to-hand combat to do all things is actually, that's what I think what we want to achieve, what we're trying to get people to engage in. That's a lifelong process of like learning and understanding how to grow and scale businesses.
I think something you mentioned before is also bringing the lens of economics and business to the marketing role. So, I think there's a new term out there, like the marketing economist type person.
Rishab and I were talking about that a year and a half ago. It's true.
Yeah, and I think that's I think that's a new dynamic in the agency world. You don't find a lot of people that can effectively merge analytics, general macro understanding of D2C businesses with creative and with like tactical media buying knowledge on the ad platforms. And if you can combine all of those together, then you've really got a very like well-rounded holistic marketer.
Yeah, I think being a holistic marketer, I think the risk today, it's a lot easier to do it because the tooling is becoming more advanced. You can leverage platforms like Format. Icon just launched their ad product. So I think you're going to get a lot of stuff. Like getting outputs is going to be easy. Understanding the quality of the outputs, I think, is going to require a discerning eye and critical analysis. And I think previously the way to actually understand that and get that was by doing. Like you have to go and make the creatives. You have to go and make the landing page. You have to run it and experiment and see what works. Traditionally, one of the hardest things for marketers to understand was finance, P&Ls. I just think it's recently within direct to consumer as like the platforms become more expensive and margins have become compressed, marketers have had to start to learn what is contribution profit, what is EBITDA, what are my costs. So these are all really positive forcing functions and developments. My hope is just that like we can keep marketers really close to the work and then give them that perspective, like that 30,000 foot view perspective too.
And when you're in the market and you're kind of looking for a director of growth role, do you find that people lean towards one or the other, like heavy on the data side, heavy on the creative strategy side, or have you started to see more marketers kind of come up through the agency world that are well versed in both aspects?
It's very interesting because we've tried to hire for all different types of people to figure out who's the best fit for the role. I think what you find most often in the market today is really proficient performance marketers. They understand channels, they understand marketing metrics. They're even comfortable operating P&Ls. Like I think over the last 3 to 5 years, that's become more common. But those are senior individuals and they're expensive because they know their value that they're bringing to the organization. For consumer businesses, this is one of the most important roles. It's much less common to find creatives who want to engage in like thoughtful discussion around P&L and performance marketing. And what I've found is I think the finance stuff is a lot easier to teach. So I wish creatives would engage in those discussions. I think a lot of people have these like invisible scripts where they're like, I'm a creative, I'm not good with numbers. Listen to yourself. Like that's a limiting belief that you're putting on yourself. Our marketing team at Darkroom, I was talking to Oren about this last week. I prefer to work with designers that have taste, that know what looks good, what feels good to the consumer, what creatives work, what angles to test. They like have produced, they're comfortable producing. That's not a new motion for them. And then I educate them on performance marketing, on more technical applications of marketing. I think that's a lot easier to learn because once you get into the data habit for 3 to 6 months, you're good to go. And that's what I was talking to you about. Like, you're a great performance marketer. I think you like scaling. It's fun and it's exciting. And this is almost advice for myself too, because I'm not a creative by trade. Once you start engaging in the development of the creative, and what I mean by that is like creating copy for ads, scripting ads, designing V1s of ads, like running those ads, seeing what works. I think that getting into the psychology of the consumer, that unlocks like a totally different skill set that is a huge asset, I think, for marketers in general. To more directly answer your question, long-winded answer here, but I don't actually think it matters if you come from creative or performance. I think it matters, it's your attitude. Are you willing to put in the hard work? Like with anything, are you willing to apply yourself? Because marketing is really hard and you're going to need to be comfortable holding multiple ideas in your head at the same time, grappling with finance, grappling with creative, which are two things that have been traditionally disjointed.
What do you think about the role that AI is going to play in sort of helping these marketers hone their skills when it comes to merging creative and data?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot easier. Like, I think it's very exciting. That's why I'm saying, like, it matters your attitude. If you're the type of person that genuinely is like a truth seeker, you're trying to like figure out problems and problem solve and think critically, you're going to be able to upskill yourself, learn and deploy a lot faster with the AI tooling. You can spin up landing pages faster. You can spin out creative faster. You're going to be able to automate spreadsheets and financials. Like, that stuff is happening right now. I think the risk is that people get lazy. They don't actually try and understand. They let, the machine start doing the thinking for them. And I think that's where people can be at risk. But I mean, generally, I'm really excited. And when I first started to like recognize the writing on the wall with AI, like, I think the natural response for anyone who's in an industry that's being disrupted by AI, it's to be afraid, to be scared. I think that's a natural human response. Is this going to replace my job? Am I still going to be able to be valuable and contribute? Advertising is not going anywhere. We're still going to be advertising 15 years from now. It's just the way that it carried out is going to be more efficient and different. I actually think even with what's happening with agents, it's like there might be advertising for agents to like influence them. That
Have you seen some of the video? There's a couple of video tools that have popped up in the space where you can actually upload a script and then create an AI avatar to basically have like recite the script and create like a fully.
You don't have an AI avatar yet?
No, I think we should all like. I could train an AI avatar on myself and then have that person speak with my cadence.
I have UGC AI avatar. So does Jackson. I was looking at a short form video the other day for our LinkedIn, and our editing team they just replicated my voice. Like, there was an AI speaking. It wasn't me. But I was like, oh shit. And they said something, they said a word differently than I would normally pronounce it. And I was like, whoa, that's not me. The world that we're living in. What are you most excited about this year?
I'm excited about some of the new channels that I think we're exploring. We talked a bit about TikTok Shop. We talked about a bit about getting into the affiliate side, really scaling up the creator program that we already have at Darkroom, because we've seen a lot of success with the kind of scopes that we do on the performance marketing side, where we're getting UGC content each month. So I think scaling that up and sort of kind of layering on top a UGC agency element to the performance marketing skill set that we already bring to the table, I think is going to be really exciting. And I also think just looking at some of these winning products and winning categories that we've identified over the past few years that we're going to look to scale into, just in terms of the kinds of businesses that we work with and look to replicate some of the success that we've had over the past couple of years.
I think your perspective on growth marketing is the same that I have. Going back to what you were saying, what categories do you like for direct to consumer? I mean, like, the perspective we have is very interesting. We see a lot of brands. We see founders that struggle. We see brands like Sculpd that scale really fast, like Bulbhead. This is why I love this business model, because you get so much exposure. You learn so fast because you see so many other entrepreneurs in the arena, like, cutting their teeth, trying to make things happen. What have you learned, and how does that inform how you would think about categories and launching products in different verticals?
I think it's really important to keep a close pulse on just general macro trends that are happening in the consumer market. Right? So we talked about this before, but I think you saw a real boom in household products, cleaning products during the first COVID wave in 2020 and then leading into 2021. And that's kind of carried all the way through with like categories like cookware and then home goods kind of seeing a really good stint there. I think right now, if you talk to a lot of people that are in the older millennial and baby boomers segment, and you kind of ask them what are like the 1 to 2 things that you're thinking the most about, I think it's all like lifespan longevity.
You think we're gonna live forever?
I mean, I think if you're in Dubai, there's a chance.
Yeah.
Because of the safety, of course.
No way.
But I think those two. those two categories, I think products in health and wellness, specifically focused on lifespan longevity, are really hot right now. And I think the other category that works really well, specifically on the meta ad side, is like highly giftable products. Products with an element of seasonality, where you can take the time to build top of funnel and build awareness to then really execute in those few seasonal peaks that a business has, which I think on the agency side we really appreciate, because it does take us some time to get into our work and to really start to optimize these campaigns, versus a business that maybe has a more even distribution of revenue throughout the year, and you're almost always under the microscope when it comes to performance and hitting numbers.
Yeah. How do you deal with that stress, that pressure? Because it's always like never enough, you know?
I think it's really important to develop the skill of the ability to communicate why performance was down or why performance is bad during a certain period. I think most people have a pretty good sense of talking about why something's working, why performance is good. But I think in our space in particular, we run into a lot of situations every week where we have to be able to communicate why something isn't going as expected. We've got a lot of pressure on us as well, kind of acting as the marketing team, de facto marketing team for a lot of these brands. So what I've noticed is, one really important thing is to not panic and be able to develop a narrative that you can kind of communicate during your next like regularly scheduled client call or meeting update. So as an example, if performance is bad and you know why that is, take the time to drill down into what metric is lagging, and then kind of just work your way down the decision tree and just keep asking why. Soon you'll get to a conclusion, right? Like a lot of times you'll see that CPMs on Facebook are through the roof during the holiday period. Look at some of your other creative metrics. Quickly identify, is it a creative problem or not? If your ads are still getting a really strong click-through rate and they're still getting good watch times, then it's probably not a creative problem. Test a new channel, or spend more on an existing channel that you were not leaning as heavily into, to see that if you can counteract the high CPMs on Meta. And just that sort of thought process is something that I've used to try and kind of deal with the pressure of navigating a lot of different businesses at one time.
The Bitcoin experiment, first of all, the math, irrefutable. It's quite brilliant. It was an experiment to see if people would adopt and basically agree, hey, this is a new form of digital gold. That effectively happened last year. And then I think meme coins are super fun. So I participate just in terms of for the excitement. I've got my Brazil meme coin house chat right here with my friends.
There you go. You know what I love about meme coins? It's kind of flipped the traditional investing game on its head, right? Where it was like the institutions got in early, and then by the time something came to the public market, you were almost too late, right? Like if you look at like an Uber, for example, if you bought Uber in the public markets, you are probably flat on your gains. Whereas if you got in early, you've 100x. And I think meme coins are really interesting, because what you're actually seeing is the retail is getting in first and taking the big profits, and then institutions are trying to follow afterwards. Once it kind of becomes part of the popular culture and kind of becomes part of the broader narrative.
Well, I think that's one of the benefits of crypto in general, just for like the general population. Those who, were eager enough to venture out and like figure out trading and buying Bitcoin on a centralized exchange. It's kind of like a slippery slope where you then just kind of get wrapped into investing at large. And I think that's been a huge positive for, I think, retail investors. Obviously, there have been negatives. There's been sums of money lost, but I think it teaches you about the market.
What about altcoins? Is there anything interesting you're seeing in terms of use cases and potential kind of competitors to ETH and Solana?
Oh my God, you're gonna get me into trouble. I mean, we spoke about Sui. I think that's interesting. Nothing I want to share on the podcast on camera. I know you're a big Pudgy Penguins guy.
No comment.
Dude, the look in your eyes.
No comment there.
Aashay was giving me investment advice earlier.
That was not my finest investment advice, that's for sure.
Listen, this was my experience coming to Dubai. You know, before I came.
I think you bet on winners, and Luca, the guy who started Pudgy Penguins, he's just a winner. Like, he just knows what he's doing.
I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that philosophy. All right, sweet. Well, there you have it. I think this is like a meta ads masterclass.
I think it's a meta ads masterclass, a crypto masterclass.
Oh, we didn't get into geopolitics.
We didn't get into geopolitics.
We'll have to do one in South Africa. We'll have some geopolitics talking points. All right, there you have it. Thank you.